Step on up, sit down, twist off that bottle top or crack open that can. And welcome to Porch Matters. This is Terry Cagle coming to you from my back porch. Yes sir, yes ma'am, the name of this show is authentic. On Porch Matters, our saying is this: big issues or just a friendly conversation, no topic is off limits. We take pride in being able to talk about anything with each other in an open discussion. Open discussion is one of the only ways to learn. Your perspective could be changed. You could change the perspective of others. On this episode, Jason joins me on the porch to discuss the holiday season and the new normal. How is COVID-19 going to impact family gatherings this holiday season? Without further ado, let's get started. Jason, how's your week been?
Week's been good, man. Did my usual, work, and then had a really good weekend. Kay and I went on our second hike, which was not really a major thing. We went to a small park here in our county, Walker County Lake. I'd never been there before in my life.
I've drove by it a couple of times, but I've never actually been there.
Well, I'm going to tell you, brother, it is nice.
Really?
Yes, I was pleasantly surprised. They've put in a lot of work there. The trails, we did about probably a mile because she got tired. After that, she's ready to stop.
Right.
But it's on the West Alabama bird watching trail. And they have a tower built that's handicap accessible. So for bird watching, they've got all kinds of stuff set up there so you know what you're looking at and all that. Then they've got an archery park that was really cool. They had a tower there that also was handicap accessible where you actually shoot down at the targets. And I felt like I didn't have a bow and arrow, but I thought this is some real Walking Dead stuff here.
Walking Dead stuff?
Yeah, man. Got Daryl up there shooting at them.
Well, Daryl shot a crossbow. It'd been more like Robin Hood or William Tell.
Or Hawkeye and Green Arrow.
Or Ted Nugent.
Yeah, or Ted Nugent. But it was really, really nice, and I would recommend it to anybody. It's not like going into a national forest where you really feel like you're away from civilization, because you could still hit Interstate 22.
Right.
But it was beautiful. It was just absolutely beautiful. So we did that, and I stopped by Radial Tire and Bandag, and I wanted to get a tire to add to my collection of stuff in the gym to use as a tire to flip and to hit with a sledgehammer. And so I got that tire. I think it probably weighs around 200 pounds.
Nice.
And yeah, it's just for me, for my size, it's just right. And I worked out with it today. I had to work today, but I came in and I worked out with the tire and did some things with it, and really enjoying that, man. Just really having a good time with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, me and Stacy acquired a tire not too long ago. We got a truck tire off of a rig.
Oh, yeah. No, that's the real deal. I hear you.
We're going to be doing a little something in the coming days. Another thing, you mentioned all the hiking. We talked about it before, either on recording or off, about going to Bankhead and hiking and everything. I think we need to do that.
I've been thinking about that. I was kind of building up to it. I was trying to hit we're trying to do it every Saturday that we can.
Right.
And I thought, let's get some of the little areas out of the way, just go see what they're all about. And that's going to be a big step, Bankhead. And I'm excited about it. And I would like to go with you and Stacy, because I've never been to actual Bankhead National Forest beyond Clear Creek Park. So you guys are more familiar.
Right. Well, I'm not that familiar with it. I know a couple of decent spots. One of the nice places to go, it's not really that far in. It's kind of right off of a main road, so there's not really that much hiking to it, but it's well worth the view. And there was a couple other places that the hike can get a little, it can get a little rough.
Can you camp out there?
Well, I'm sure you can if you're a camper.
Would you be interested in that?
I'd be interested.
We have a tent. I don't know how big it is. I'd have to look at it.
That's a podcast in itself.
Yes, it is.
I don't know if the listeners are ready for that kind of shenanigans.
That might be too intimate. And they say that's too much information. We didn't want to hear all that.
Especially if one of us is gassy.
Well, let's hope that neither one of us are.
I know, right? We could always blame it on the ladies, right?
If we do that, we're going to have each other's back.
Oh, I've always got your back, brother.
Okay.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is that time of year again. Halloween has come and gone, and right now we're looking at that nice, wonderful Turkey Day right in the face. Even though a lot of folks is wanting to just overlook Thanksgiving and just wanting to go straight to Christmas, at least as far as the shopping goes. The Christmas music has begun already, and it's about to drive me crazy.
Yeah, I know. The past 2 Saturdays when we go do things together, that's what Kay wants it on, so we put it on Christmas.
People wonder why I'm a Scrooge.
We've changed a lot of our habits. We try not to spend the money and try to focus more on enjoying it, just taking it in. I really think that gets overdone.
Yep.
Way overdone.
Way too over commercialized.
Oh, man, yeah. I guess that's probably, you go back a century, people have been saying that, but they were right.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree wholeheartedly. It's very, very difficult for me to get into the Christmas spirit. I get into the Christmas spirit usually Christmas Eve night.
Do you have any traditions? Anything you like to do Christmas Eve night?
Christmas Eve night is usually whenever me and Mom exchange gifts. And then Christmas morning, and then my family always gets together down at my grandmother's house for Christmas dinner. And gifts are exchanged down there. I always look forward to that. But, usually right after I get home, I'm ready for the day to be over. I'm just being honest with you.
No. I understand. There's something about Christmas. And I was this way when I was a kid. Christmas Day evening and night, there's a bad feel to it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it's usually because I'm slapped full and about ready to puke or burst.
Well, that sometimes too. it can be kind of depressing. I don't know. It's hard for me to put into words, but it's like that for me. Christmas Eve, which my grandmother always did our family on Christmas Eve, and then Mom took it over when she passed. So Christmas Eve is usually that's our biggest gathering or our most important. And then I'll generally, my daughter and her friend, and we'll do the gift thing. And then later at night, I'll watch Christmas shows. You're going to think this is probably very odd, but I started doing this when I was probably in middle school, maybe 5th or 6th grade. Every Christmas Eve, I watch the Pope.
The Pope?
Yes. I can't really explain it, but there's something about watching the services at the Vatican and listening to the Pope's message and watching it all. There's just something about it that puts me in a kind of a Christmas spirit. I guess because I'm weird, maybe,
Right.
And I'm not Catholic. And it's nothing wrong. I don't mean to say I'm weird because I like to watch the Pope. I'm saying I'm not Catholic. That's why maybe it's weird. But
I don't see anything wrong with it personally. I mean, if that's your thing, that's your thing.
Well, I don't know why. I couldn't tell you the real exact reason why, but it makes me feel good. There's something about that makes me feel good, and I like to wake up very early on Christmas Day and watch a few things, eat, then drift back off to sleep and get up again, and then start the day, of course. But Christmas night, if I don't have something to do, somewhere to go, some kind of, I don't know, there's kind of almost like a melancholy that sets in on me.
Me and my mother almost have started a Christmas tradition in itself. Usually on Christmas night, there's nothing open.
No.
About 3 or 4 years ago, we started going out to go to like a fast food joint or whatever because we've already had our fill of good home cooked food and we just want some junk food, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up starting to go to Denny's because Denny's is about the only thing open on Christmas night.
Yeah.
I'm a little Well, I ain't even going to say it like that. I'm just going to be flat out honest. I'm a Grinch. I'm not that fond of Christmas, mainly because of over commercialization of it. The
Mhm.
fact that they're blaring Christmas music at you basically from November 1st all the way to New Year's, it
Mhm.
drives me crazy. Christmas movies, Hallmark Channel, all of that crap. I'm a Scrooge. I I believe it takes away from the real purpose of the season, puts all the emphasis on money and spending and everything else whenever I don't believe it's about that. I'm a religious man, I'm a Christian, and I believe it's about the birth of my Savior. But that's just me. Other people look at it differently. Some about the winter solstice and everything else. I get it. But to me, it's about the birth of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. In my opinion, even churches have gotten away from that. The only thing they wanted to do is have their little Christmas plays and stuff like that. That just drives me nuts, and that's another podcast for another time, I guess. But
Did you ever do a Christmas play?
oh yeah, whenever I was a kid,
Did you ever sing in a Christmas play?
yeah, I did.
Really?
Yeah, and cantatas and stuff like that. I sound real good in the group
Well, I did a
and in the
solo.
shower as well.
Well, yeah, a shower is very forgiving. But I did a solo when I was in fifth grade.
Really,
Yep. Love letters of Christmas telling me.
that was awesome. That was
Yes.
awesome. I didn't realize you could still get that high, bub.
Well, you know how people squeeze on those foam balls when they're stressed out?
Oh yeah, the little twist
Oh, yeah. But
for the
I, I,
extra
I,
pitch.
I, I understand exactly where you're coming from. The way that I found that I deal with it is I kind of internalized it as far as the Christmas music, the Hallmark things, and just the whole thing and the commercialization. I try to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do,
Right.
and and then I just try to internalize it, and I kind of disconnect my mind during December. In other words, it's almost like, you know what, we're all living in a Christmas fairy tale right now, I guess, or some kind of Christmas land. So I'm just not gonna. This is gonna be my stress-free as much as possible month, and I'm gonna disconnect. And the things that mean something to me for Christmas, that's what I'm gonna personally, internally focus on, and just try to ignore the rest.
In a lot of ways, I do the same thing. I just can't articulate it that good, I guess. But that's
Well,
what
there's a
I
lot of
do.
articulation with this pronunciation
Right.
in my whole thing. Yeah,
I've got a lot of stuff going on in December. Obviously, I have my birthday in December. That
I thought that's what we were celebrating in December.
well, I'm
Terry
not my
Cagle's birthday.
I'm not my own savior.
Oh, but it's the other guy. That's what we're celebrating. We like Terry too, though.
I love Terry, but I also love the Lord too, my friend.
But you got TC and JC. What are you gonna do?
That's a dynamic duo and a half.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, they both. It's like that song, man. They're both all right with me.
Right. But that same time span on the 19th, I've also got my extended family's Christmas dinner that I plan every year. I've got that going on. And I've also got some other stuff lined up with Stacy and her family during that time frame too. So I'm gonna have to go back to work to get any rest.
I understand. And now that you brought that up, I think maybe that's a good intro into what we're going to talk about here. You brought up because you usually organize that family gathering.
Yes, I do.
And we are going through kind of unprecedented times. Unless you want to go back to 1917 to 1919, these are fairly unprecedented times. And, a lot of people have that on their mind as far as, what about the family gatherings? Where are we right now with the pandemic and COVID-19?
Right. And that's really what we wanted to touch base with you on tonight on this episode folks because it is that time of year. Jason, how do you feel about it? Do you feel like COVID-19 is really going to put a damper on family gatherings?
I believe they absolutely will. I don't think there's any way around it. I have some information here that's coming from different news sources. We're seeing a lot of surges around the country. I'm not going to waste our time going into reading all the different reports, but what you're seeing in some states like Missouri and Oregon, mayors and other officials are starting to look at in small informal gatherings. And the reason why is because health officials have traced a lot of the surge we're seeing right now in numbers to Halloween and Halloween gatherings. And they are also seeing with where they do the tracing, they're also seeing informal social gatherings as fueling some of the surge. And when they say informal, what they mean is getting together in a small group, say 6 to 10 people. Generally, it's family or people you know very well. There's a tendency to let down your guard and to get comfortable because you're not in the large gatherings that they, different places have said, now don't do. It is spiking transmission, unfortunately. So there's a big concern across the country as far as, okay, one, how do we deal with the holiday season as far as the new normal with COVID? Two, what kind of impact is that going to have on people's psyche and rates of depression and loneliness? Three, how can we try to balance it out to where we can still see Meemaw and Peepaw, but we don't run the risk of them getting put on a ventilator? So there, it's really, and this is a discussion we're having in my family. A lot of families are having it. Y'all, like you said earlier, you have churches that have their Christmas programs. You have nonprofit organizations. I've got to go to a meeting Wednesday night with the volunteer fire department where I'm on the board because we always do a dinner at the end of November or the 1st of December for the whole community. And I've got to talk to everybody about, hey, we need to really look at that this year, whether or not that's the wise thing to do. And so we're just dealing with something that we haven't had to deal with before. I mean, we've had bad years where the flu has been rampant, but this is a little bit different animal. You almost feel like you're rolling the dice. So, I don't know. What do you think on all this, Terry?
Well, as far as what the CDC is saying, it hadn't really changed much of its tune in the last few months. If you really want to listen to them or not, that's your choice. If you look at their track record over this whole thing, it's not exactly stellar, but they're still saying wear a mask, stay 6 feet away, wash your hands. If you attend any gatherings and everything, to bring your own food, drinks, plates, cups, and utensils, and to wear a mask and safely store your mask while eating and drinking. Just stuff like that. Single-use options on as far as your plates, as far as your cups, things along those lines. They're saying it's best to do it outdoors and not indoors. The way I look at it, it's kind of the same way I've looked at it since it started. I just say use common sense. With the way that I'm planning my Christmas stuff, and right now it's tentatively booked, meaning I was able to find a place that would be able to hold us and everything like that. But the way everything's going with our wonderful governor, Meemaw, she's liable to change everything up at the drop of a hat. So that's why I say tentatively. And I was asked about it earlier this year whenever I got around, and a lot of my family still wants to do it. And I've told them, I said, even if we have to do it at somebody's house or rent some kind of a community center, we're still going to have it. If people don't want to take the chance, that's their prerogative. I'm looking at it kind of like Grandpa looked at it, because I asked him one time, because him and Grandma used to plan it before I did. And I would say, How do you feel about it whenever you plan something and you don't get much of a turnout? And he said, all I can do is get everything set up. Whoever shows up will enjoy it. So I'm kind of looking at it the same way. I'll plan it. If you make it, great. We'll take as much precaution as we can. But at the end of the day, if you don't want to make it, if you don't feel like taking that chance, we still love you. That's about the only thing I can think of. I say use common sense. Wash your hands. If you feel like you need to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you look at studies on masks, some of those experts say they're wonderful. Other experts say it's about like putting up a chain link fence to stop a mosquito. So either way, the question that I think is best to ask is whatever you're wanting to do worth the risk of getting it?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. And I think that's part of the problem is that's the big concern because we're going into the holiday season, using common sense and taking precautions. Unfortunately, people tend to not do that when they get around people that they know or related to. That guard comes down. And that's the concern. I believe that if people do go forward and have gatherings, that they're just going to say, well, we're going to do it like we've always done it, and whatever happens, happens. I know for us, for Thanksgiving, we've already decided, as long as it's not inclement weather or anything, we're doing it outside. We're going to start a fire in the fire pit. We're going to grill and try to use that as a way of trying to mitigate things, and mask and distancing will be a definite option there. As far as Christmas goes, my sister, and she has my niece and nephew, has already said they won't be there, but they're going to be on Zoom and participating that way. We've talked about it as a family, and we're really not sure if we're going to do it. Simply because of the risk to my parents and my dad with many different physical ailments. So we're going to try to figure out a way to celebrate it together without put them at risk. When I look on social media, I see people more so now than I've seen before, my age, in their 40s, having hospital visits and being very, very, very sick. I know we're focused on generally the elderly, people who are at high risk due to immunosuppressed situations. But I'm going to tell you right now, if I was to acquire it, that would be devastating financially. To be off of work for 2 weeks, then I've got a wife who has some different health issues herself. So I've got to think, well, crap, I may give it to her. So it's really something you have to try to think through. And there's no perfect solution.
No, there's not.
No perfect solution, but you have to think through what you're doing, because if not, you don't want to be somebody who didn't do that, and then you're the next person on Facebook asking for prayers.
Right.
I don't know. Find a way, but if you don't think you can find a way, maybe do something different.
I absolutely see your point. But as I sit on this back porch, I look to my left. I see a little lady sitting down there at that house next door to me that ain't got that many Thanksgiving and Christmases left.
Oh, yeah.
None of us know when it's going to be our last one.
Part of what makes it so bad.
Yeah. If that little lady says we're having Thanksgiving, I'm going to be there.
Oh, I understand.
And if she says we're going to have Christmas, I'm going to be there too, out of respect for her, because you never know. At the same time, I'm going to take as much precaution as I can beforehand to make sure I'm not bringing anything down there.
Well, and I think that's the best you can do, in that type of situation.
Yeah. But let's be honest, Bubba. I mean, it's a crapshoot. Just like whether or not you go out and get in that car if you have a wreck. You know what I'm saying. You can take
there's enough science to show that it's highly transmittable.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from. You take risk every day. You take risk walking your doggy,
You do.
But at the same time, when someone says, hey, this is a risk you're taking that may not be necessary, but could potentially affect someone else worse than you, well, then you got to look at that differently.
I agree wholeheartedly on that. But at the same time, just me, and I'm speaking for me and me alone, I'm not going to let a virus dictate how I live my life.
You don't have to let it dictate how you live your life, but you can use your brain enough to where you're not someone who's making the problem worse.
And that's what I've been trying to do all year. I've tried to find that happy balance. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm not going to be one that just holds up in the house. If I have been diagnosed with high blood pressure, and I have been told that I was a diabetic, both of which are very bad whenever it comes to this virus. But,
yeah.
I've been trying to take vitamins and keep my immune system and everything built up. I'm actually wearing long pants more lately instead of shorts because of the way the temperature's been fluctuating and everything, since we are getting right into the middle of flu season. I haven't went and got a flu shot because every time I get a flu shot, I catch the flu.
Yeah, and some people do. I've been fortunate that that's never happened to me, but I'm always afraid that might happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Me personally, and this is just my opinions and mine alone, if you or the listeners happen to disagree with it, that's fine. But if you can get together safely, get together, because you never know when that patriarch's last Thanksgiving or Christmas is going to be.
Right. Wear a mask, take the precautions, do what you need to do, because I'm going to tell you, it would be a heavy guilt if you didn't, something happened. Don't take anything for granted. I mean, because you're trying to balance it out. On one hand, it is important, especially for those older folks. So take the precautions and don't kill them. I mean, you don't want it to be their last one because of you.
Very true.
I mean, good Lord.
I think I've told this story before, but if I haven't, it's going to be new. It had been a while since I had rode in a truck with my dad. We went up Highway 5 up to one of the service stations up there to deliver fuel. And for those of you that are not familiar with this area at all, Highway 5 is a highway that goes from Jasper, Alabama, up through Nauvoo and up to US 278. There are not any shoulders on this road whatsoever.
No. Very deadly road.
Yes, there's been a lot of accidents going up and down through there. My dad was hauling gallons of gasoline in that tanker. We were going up through there, and people were burning leaves right on the side of the road and everything like that. He looked over there at the passenger seat, and he seen how nervous I was. It had been a minute, and he just cackling. Just, what's wrong, boy? I just looked over. I said, I get it. He said, you get what? I said, I get it why you pray all the time. He just started laughing more, and he said, when the good Lord's ready for me to come, I'm coming, one way or another. He said, there ain't no sense in being worried about it. And that's just something that stuck with me since. Is that anecdotal? Maybe. But at the end of the day, not to try and get too religious, but at the end of the day, I know where I'm going. At least that's what I believe. Other people believe different things. That's their business. I'm not particularly worried about this virus. Is it bad? Yes, it is. Can it kill me? Yes, it can. Can it kill others around me? Yes, it can. But man I serve is a whole lot bigger and a whole lot stronger than me, and he's already got a plan. So I'm trying not to worry about it that much.
I found that I worry about it in flashes. I also recognize the fact the best you can do is the best you can do.
Absolutely.
It's like, people complain about, well, they've been wrong about this and wrong about that. Well, you know what? These are people who have studied this most of their professional life, and all we can do is go by the best information we have at the time.
It kind of goes back to what Stella said in episode 1. And if you don't know what we're talking about, check our past episodes. We actually had a friend of mine named Stella Glover on, and she had just had it. It's been several months ago, but she did say something that stuck with me. It's still a new virus and they're learning. So in that regard, I do give them the benefit of the doubt. You know, a lot of the stuff that they're saying is common sense stuff. And that's what I've been trying to do the whole time, is just use common sense.
A lot of it is. The problem's been people, you have a percent and not a small percentage of people that won't apply that common sense.
I apply most of it. I don't wear a mask all the time, but I do wash my hands and everything constantly.
Well, if I'm somewhere inside a building around other people, I'll wear a mask. I just think to me, that's common sense. Now, if I'm outside, I'm not wearing a mask outside. But in the truck that we go out in the cab over, we've wore a mask in there because we're right there side by side. I mean, within inches of each other. And we relaxed on that. But I'm about to have to reinstitute that because if one of those guys is sick, like I said, I can't afford to get it. I can't afford to spread it to anybody.
Hey, I'm in the same boat. If I get it, I'll have to be off work until I test negative.
Yeah, especially what you do. They're going to check you. I can get by. You know, I told the boys that work for me, I said, listen, I may or may not tell you if I get it because I got to have you to come into work. I reckon they'll sue me. But if more people would just take those common sense steps, it would go a long way. You know, it would really, really go a long way. That's been kind of a problem. You know, with technology we have, there are different ways to do things. You know, you can't always do things the way you'd like to do, but we do have the technology like you and I are doing right now. We're 20 miles from each other and we're doing a show together looking right at each other.
Technically, we're not even 20 miles.
Is it not? How far is it?
Well, if you go by the crow flies, it's somewhere between 10 to 15.
Well, yeah, that's crow flies. That's
Now,
true.
if y'all don't know what I'm talking about that old Southern saying, as the crow flies, just like it's not mileage, it's you got to break out the old geometry. They fly straight paths, so that's what we mean by that.
So they skip, they go over the woods, over the creeks and the rivers, and exactly.
That's right.
They're taking the shortest distance.
Exactly.
But you know, so you can use in some of these situations, people can use technology, Zoom, other things, to try to mitigate it a little bit if everyone is concerned about gathering. That's one way of doing it. You know, everybody, as far as like households, you can have different households. This requires a little bit more effort in being creative, but like if you have different families that are getting together as part of an overall larger family, each household can be a part of that. That's another way of doing it. You can, of course, you can do it outside to a point, but you can't. I mean, if you know, the weather dictates that.
One thing that I've been thinking about is I think a lot of people who really wasn't planning on going to any family gatherings anyway are just going to use this as an excuse.
Oh, yeah.
Be if they were just bitter or having estranged relationships or anything like that. I think that this is a golden opportunity to use this as an excuse just to take a break for at least 1 year anyway. What do you think about that?
I think you're right. I think it's really been kind of a positive for antisocial people, people that don't like to meet. They can use it as an excuse. And on the positive side of that, for everybody else, maybe everybody else will be kind of like, well, you know, things seem a whole lot more pleasant. What's the common denominator here? I mean, you know, you got to think about that. So, I mean, it's kind of like on Facebook. If you've got a bunch of people on there that just, you know, the stuff they post just bothers you, you start unfollowing people, you might find, hey, I enjoy Facebook a lot more now.
Are you trying to say you're fixing to unfollow me?
I unfollowed you years ago. I unfollowed you years ago, big man.
Yeah, right.
But no, you know, I think, yeah, it's that. Plus, you have people who, you know, for different reasons, they kind of need a push to get out. It's healthy for them to be with other people, but because of, it may not be negative feelings, but because of their own insecurities or a possible mental illness, they don't. And this will make it that much easier for them just to kind of take the hermit route.
Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on the porch as always. Any closing remarks?
The only closing remarks I have is we're rolling into a holiday season. We're seeing bigger surges than we saw in the summer. Record hospitalizations. People just need to look at that and say, okay, what do we need to do? If it's for the sake of someone that's very important and you really feel like you need to get together like that, then take every precaution you can. Try to be as creative as you can. If that's not the case and you're like, well, it's probably best we don't get together, don't forsake making the effort to try to do something creative, even if it's just over Zoom or on the phone. Don't just say, well, we're not going to do it. I'm going to sit at home and watch a movie that night. Don't do that. Don't do that, because that's not good. That's not good either. Make the effort in whatever way you can safely. If you really don't like your family and don't want to be around them, well, then heck, maybe you do watch a movie that night. You might discover you like Christmas a lot better. I don't know. And and then again, maybe you're the jerk. So maybe everybody's would be much happier if you weren't there. So you got to consider that too. Maybe you're doing them a service by not showing up.
Well, Jason, if you consider yourself a jerk, maybe we need to have a Christmas night recording for Porch Matters.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that. I mean, in all reality, there's a show that I listen to, gosh, for 20 years. And we've talked about it before. It's very famous, one of the big radio shows, Coast to Coast, with George Norrie, started by Art Bell. And George Norrie, who is basically the main host now, has no children. And I don't think he's married. Every holiday, regardless of what the holiday is, Christmas Eve, Thanksgiving, it doesn't matter. He always makes sure, and it's very touching to me, he always makes sure that he does a show and that he's the one that does it, because his belief is you've got so many people out there that don't have family or are not gathering and are lonely. He said, these listeners, these other people, they are my family now, and I'm going to be there for them. And it's just, I found myself on different holidays when, everything was over with, and I was like, I would listen to George Norrie because I knew he was alive, and I knew that was somebody there that was by himself as well. And we've talked about this before. Use this as an opportunity to do a realignment, so to speak. There's been a rise in what's called Friendsgiving, where people who don't have family or whose families are estranged, they'll get together with friends and certain people that they're very close to celebrate Thanksgiving. And I believe my wife and I have talked about it. There are people out there, if you don't have that, or your family isn't getting together for whatever reason, there are people out there to reach out to that might just be a huge blessing to your life. You might literally be doing God's work.
I agree wholeheartedly. Just like I've told you before, I'm a firm believer in family isn't always blood, and blood isn't always family, and everybody has some kind of a story like that to tell, and find somebody to have those or share those holiday moments with, whether it be just friends or a show or something. My friends up in Memphis, they always do what we have always called chives giving. We do it in between Thanksgiving and Christmas. We always have a big potluck get together. I haven't really heard much details on it as of yet for this year. And all the proceeds and everything usually end up going to some sort of charity, be a shelter or something like that. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that have, for just like you were talking about, this time of year affects them a whole lot differently than it does others. I know Thanksgiving and Christmas hasn't been the same for me since Dad got sick, and then we lost him, and then same thing with my granddad. It's changed over the years. There's another dynamic to it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm one of those that come holiday season, I start thinking about them a lot. And it's the way I've been since 2008.
I understand. You start, and then that, I think for most people, man, they start reflecting. Mm-hmm. You start to reflect, and brother, that can be a rough thing.
It can be. That can be a future show as well. And I think that's something that we need to talk about.
I agree.
Firsthand with me, because November, December, January, I start reflecting a lot. And I do a lot of what I call getting in my own head, and I overthink a lot and everything like that. So some of it's good. A lot of times it wouldn't, especially up to about 3 years ago. I would always, and my birthday always falls like I said. And then Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, I would always do what I called the state of Terry. Instead of the State of the Union, I'd be, all right, I'm filling the blank years old. What have I got to show for it?
Yeah.
Me and you have had that conversation many a times.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
So, yeah, I think that might be a good thing to talk about.
I think you're right. And I would like to add on to that, maybe different methods or things that you can do if you do your state of the you. What can you do to make positive changes?
Right. Self-reflection isn't always bad.
That's right.
Self-reflection is what you make of it. A lot of time, it kind of goes back to something that I said before about, it's a lot like what I said before about standing in front of a mirror and being able to look at the person and like that person that you see.
Yes.
That's not something that's done overnight.
No.
It's not something that's done overnight. And I'm not completely there by a long shot, but I am a whole lot better than what I used to be. And it's something that I'm still working on. And I think that's a continuous journey, because you're always your own worst critic.
And often your own worst enemy.
I'm both my worst critic and my worst enemy. This has been fun, my friend.
I've enjoyed it.
Just a little bit, you want to give the folks a little bit of a preview for the next episode?
Sure.
If you have never heard about this whatsoever, look it up in between episodes. That way you have a decent idea as to what we're talking about. We are going to be doing a small experiment to start with, and to show you what the fairness doctrine is. I think it is going to be a real good show, because we've already done a small run through already. Hopefully we'll be able to teach you a thing or two.
We all ask the same questions. We all say, wow, why is our nation so divided? Wow, why does it seem like me and my good friend are operating off a totally different sets of facts? Wow, why is this? Why is that? It gets to the point to where you get tired of saying why and how, and you need to understand the why and how. And I believe this is one step toward understanding how we've gotten to where we're at. So I'm looking forward to it with you, brother.
I'm looking forward to it too. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please make sure to hit that share button on either Facebook or Twitter. Please keep sharing the links. We're still trying to grow. Hopefully you're getting something out of this. Hopefully you're getting enough out of it to be able to think that others can get the same thing that you got. If you don't like the show and you happen to have some people that you're not very fond of, you could always share the show with them to make it feel like you're getting one up on them.
Weaponize us. Use us out of spite.
I'll take it. Please continue to download the show. Please continue to share it. And give us some feedback. Let us know how we're doing, good, bad, or indifferent. Until then, He is Jason Akins. I am Terry Cagle, and we will catch you later. That's all the time we have for this episode. Please like the page and join the group on Facebook at Porch Matters Podcast. Please subscribe or follow us on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, or the platform of your choice so you don't miss an episode. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcast, please rate the show and leave us a review if you have the time. Thank you very much for listening, and catch us next time right here on Porch Matters.